So what is going on, guys? NandoPrince93 here with another video, and today I'm going to try to give you guys everything you need to know about iPadOS 14, at least since the first beta has been released here on June 24th at this point. So let's hop right into it and talk to you guys about my experience and, again, everything that you guys need to know. Alright guys, so welcome to iPadOS 14.0 Beta 1, and before we actually get started, I want to mention the compatibility of how far you can get with this iPad software, right? So I'll list it on the screen right now, but you can basically get as low as an iPad Air 2 with this iPadOS 14 update, and it's compatible with the oldest iPad Pro. So if you picked up an iPad Pro Gen 1 back in November of 2015, you can go ahead, get the beta, and install it on your iPad Pro from 5 years ago. Okay, and then the next thing you need to know is pretty much the size of the actual file. So for the most part, it's really going to depend on what iPad you're on, what software you're updating from, was it a beta or was it not. I recommend giving yourself about 8 gigs of space at least. Mine was a little less than 4 gigabytes of an update. I always recommend to double that up if you are updating something and you need to leave yourself enough room. That way you're in the clear. So I recommend at least having 8, maybe 10 gigabytes of open space on your iPad to actually make the update possible. All right, so let's talk about the very first feature that obviously is jumping right at your face, and that it has to be the widget screen, right? So this is the new widget screen. This new widget screen, although the new edition is nice, it looks a little more aesthetically pleasing, I guess I would say, right? And you do have a tiny bit more, and I mean a tiny bit more customization when it comes to this widget screen. The main reason why it's not, that crazy for iPad users is because we've had this widget screen for about a year now, right? It looked a little different, but that's what the widget screen is, right? It was this little panel that lets you get information at a glance. So this is what I have for mine. Mine just has my weather, battery status, any reminders, top stories, usage, and then, well, usage in terms of how much time is being spent on there, and usage, the actual widget app. So I am having a couple issues. I think this is the part of iPadOS 14 that's the most glitchy, because I've seen it for multiple people that it's different, right? So for instance, for some people, when they're still on iPadOS 14, they still have that little edit button that you get. So if you scroll all the way down and you're on iPadOS 13, there's a little edit button that allows you to edit what widgets are showing, order them how you want to order them in the more traditional sense from iPadOS 13. I don't have that, but I've seen other people's videos and people have told me that they had that edit button on their actual iPad. I don't have that. So in order for me to edit it, which anybody else can edit this way too, is you hold down on any of the things or the time, and that way you can move stuff around. So you can see here, I can move stuff around, put it back, reorder it, right? If I wanted to go here, just drop it in there, and then you have the different widgets. And then I'm gonna get rid of this one to show you guys how to add one, right? So this little outer box here, these are the widgets that are gonna stay on the screen no matter what, right? They're always gonna be there, they're always gonna load up. And then, so if I add one, let's say I wanna add that same battery one back, I have options, right? You can do just a square, you can do an elongated one, or you can even do the list one, right? I like to have the little square here because it fits in right next to the Reminders app, place it in there, it looks nice and pretty. So that functionality, it's good, it works well. Also, you can decide whether or not you want to keep this on the home screen. So if I do want to take it off and press done, I can just move this out of the way. I like to keep mine on at all times because it gives me a feel of a more desktop-like experience. So that's what we're dealing with, right? And that's pretty much the only thing that you have in terms of customization, right? So you can edit the widget, basically edit location, and then to edit the actual widget screen, you have to go through here and you just add on the top left and decide what you want to add. This is pretty much what we're limited to, guys. There's still no third-party support. People are obviously working on stuff, and when everything gets released, I'm sure when iPadOS 14 releases in the fall, we're gonna have a bunch of third-party widgets, and then a lot of this stuff is gonna get fixed. But in my opinion, there's a lot to be had, or a lot left wanted with this widget menu, right? I don't have my edit button, so I can't add more, I can't get rid of something, I can't edit my usage app, which is really, really frustrating. Number two, it has to be the fact that I can't put my widget anywhere on the screen like I could on an iPhone with iOS 14, which is really frustrating because I feel like it should have come to the iPad because there's a lot more screen real estate than an iPhone. That's just my thought on that. And then lastly, it has to be how glitchy it is. Every time I open up the computer, or here I am calling an iPad a computer, every time I open up the iPad, my weather widget gives me a different location. It gives me like Cupertino or something like that. And some of this stuff sometimes doesn't load up. So widgets is by far the glitchiest part of iPadOS 14. So I wouldn't just upgrade for the widgets if that's what you're looking for. But other than that, it is nice to look at. I'll be honest, it does look a little bit nicer, a little bit cleaner. I like how Apple, is taking this approach to their UI. But other than that, there's still a lot more left to be had when it comes to the iPad. The next big one that you definitely want to look into is universal search. So before we had Spotlight search, which was pretty convenient for me. That's what I started to adopt using, especially when it came to multitasking, because what I was able to do is if an app that I wanted to multitask wasn't on my dock, I would Spotlight search it and then drag and drop it that way. But now with universal search, it's a lot more like a Mac interface. You can search pretty much anything you want, right? So if I wanted to search, my iPadOS, right? 14, I have it in my notes, it's looked up, I have a file in my Files app that's related to iPadOS 14 from LumaFusion, and then it'll start to search pretty much anywhere on the internet for iPadOS things. So I like this approach to the universal search functionality. You can obviously open up any app that you want, and the way you bring it up is just by swiping down with one finger on the screen or swiping with two fingers on the trackpad of the keyboard. And again, you can pull up whatever apps you want. So if I wanted to pull up, let's say Marvel, favorite game of all time, and you could just open it from here. So that's a new universal search, pretty self-explanatory. I like the UI. It does look a little bit cleaner, a little easier to use, bigger with the transparency. I like that a lot. Okay, the next one that's a little deeper in, inside of an application is with Safari. So Apple had a huge section during their keynote about privacy and security, right? They consider privacy, part of their value proposition, right? People like the fact that all their data, whatever they do on their iPhone is pretty secure versus the other side of the cell phone market. But within Safari, what they've added is two pretty cool things. One is the tracking report. So tracking report allows you to see what Safari has stopped from happening, right? So in the last 30 days, known trackers prevented 33. Websites that contacted trackers, 80%, right? Most contacted tracker, doubleclick.net, and then it tells you where and what website it's broken it up to, and it gives you a little more from a statistics standpoint, which I think is cool. Like, I like this, I'm a nerd when it comes to it, so it tells you every single website and every single URL that tried to track what you were doing. So that's a tracking report. And then the next one, which I really think is cool, is translation. So I opened up ESPN Deportes, so this is the Spanish version of ESPN. And again, if you go into this little double A right here, you tap on that, Safari recognizes that there's a different language, right? It's not my local language. It's not what I use my iPad as, which is usually, or all the time, in English, right? So as you guys can see before, this little option, this translate to English, wasn't there when I showed you the tracking report. But if you go there, it tries to translate the entire website into English. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but a lot of it does translate well. Look, the Mexican met again with the goal. So it's a little choppier English, but the idea is there, and it does translate the words how it's supposed to. So I think that's a great addition to just a native application that's easy to use, right? So view original, it goes back to the regular ESPN, and then if I just go into my regular ESPN, everything is normal, all right? So that's translation within Safari and the tracing of people tracking you on their websites. So the next thing we got to talk about is picture-in-picture, and I consider this probably the second most requested feature for iPadOS, aside from secondary monitor support. And the way that it works, right, is pretty much any video interface that you can put into full screen on the iPad, you can then turn into a picture-in-picture. So with YouTube on the Safari app, right, so it won't work with the YouTube application, but it works with YouTube on Safari. If you full screen a video and then just go back to the home screen, boom, you are greeted with a picture-in-picture, right? It is still a little bit glitchy because sometimes it zooms into the image without the user wanting it to, and that's kind of annoying, but I like the interface. You can move it around wherever you want. You can put it off to the side and the little arrow's still there and it's still going and doing its thing. You can resize it, make it bigger. You can make it smaller, really, really tiny. You can open up anything around it. My mail. You can multitask while doing everything you need to. So here I am with 3 applications open and a picture-in-picture of my own video. Who would have thought we would have this day happen in real life? But that's the picture-in-picture functionality that I think you guys should take advantage of, because I think it's going to be great for multitasking, especially if you're watching a video and then actually doing work or listening to something and then just having that play in the background. That's an awesome thing to have. The next thing that was improved, and improved pretty heavily, was actually Siri. So thank goodness that they finally got rid of that crazy animation where if you were to get Siri, it would take up the entire screen. Why it would do that, I don't know, especially on a 12.9-inch iPad, but they finally got rid of it, and they finally came to their senses and figured out how to actually do it in a normal manner, right? So if I hold down the whole button, Siri just pops up right there. So as you guys can see, it pops up Siri right there, and then it answers your questions as it should. And then another thing which I want to show you guys, hopefully you can see, is that little yellow dot right next to my Wi-Fi symbol. So now this goes back to the privacy. Whenever your microphones or your cameras are in use by an app, by anything on the screen, you will see either a green dot for video or a yellowish red dot for audio. And that's just to let you know and make sure that you're aware that, as you can see, Siri is still listening to everything that I'm saying, right? What's it doing with that data? Who knows? But Siri is listening to every single thing that I'm saying, and I'm indicated by that little dot right there. So keep that in mind. But again, Siri's been revamped. It's over 20 times. It knows over 20 times more facts than it did about 3 years ago. It was built to have more, fluent conversations. So Siri's supposed to be a big update. I'm not a big Siri user aside from literally like asking her in the morning what the temperature is outside or what the weather is outside, but who knows, maybe I'll start using Siri a little bit more. And then this is probably the biggest and most feature-rich, feature that we can consider, right? The biggest update that really happened was to the Apple Pencil and how it's used with the iPad, right? So, for instance, they came out with a feature called Scribble. Scribble, it involves the Apple Pencil, obviously, and the way it works is that basically any text field that's on the iPad, you can now use your Apple Pencil to interact with it. So let's go back to Safari, right? And I'm on YouTube right now. So if I go on here, it knows that I clicked on the screen with an Apple Pencil. As you guys can see, it cleared the entire URL. And let's say I want to go to espn.com. Let's see if it recognizes my spelling. Yes, it does. You press enter, and I'm going to espn.com. So I thought that was really cool. And not only does it work like within the native Safari app, but it works on any text field, like I said. So if I want to look up my YouTube channel, let's see if it gets it. Almost, but if I press enter, do I come up? Missed a couple spaces there. But if I fix the spaces, boom, there's my channel. So any text field, you can now use your Apple Pencil to scribble whatever you want to scribble in there. It's probably more useful when you don't have a keyboard. Like that was pretty uncomfortable to like have to hold this and then make sure that it's not bending back. But it's probably very useful for people that don't have a keyboard and want to be able to dictate, annotate, and do whatever they need to do. So that's Scribble, but again, it goes a lot further than that when you go into the Notes app. So if I go into the Notes app, and I was actually testing this out earlier, is, for instance, I'm gonna erase this. Apple added another pencil, right? So if I open up this little pencil toolbar on the bottom, you can see that there's a new pen down here. It looks like a normal marker with the A. So what that means is that every time you use this pencil, every letter that you put through, it'll try to make it into an actual text letter. So A, it's right there. F, S, R, thought that was a 5, S again, 2, 1, 27. So it turns everything that you handwrite into text immediately. The second you pick up your pencil, probably about a 2-second wait period, and then it goes into filling it out. That's why it's down like that. So that's anytime you use this A pencil. But for instance, let's say you are just handwriting, like you're in a note-taking session, you're in class, you're in a meeting, right? You're just handwriting everything that you need to write down. So I'll do, hello, my name is Fernando, right? Not the best handwriting, I'll be honest, right? Let's erase this little mark right there, but not the best handwriting. And then what we can do is now hold this down, and you can see that it recognizes my hello as text, and I can highlight the entire piece of text, copy as text, go back up here, right, move this over, press space, and then hello, my name is Fernando. So I think that's a beautiful, beautiful feature, being able to just highlight actual written text. Like I feel like that's a very, very difficult thing to do. So many different variations of handwriting, so many different variations of languages to write in, lefties, righties, people that write with both hands, it's something that they have to really perfect. And I think it's really good. Like, look how bad that handwriting is, and they got it, hello, my name is Fernando, perfectly. And then another really cool thing that they added was shapes. So this has been done for a while. Like, for instance, if I wanted to create an org chart, let's say I'm the CEO, and these are my employees, right? these are my employees, and then if I want to make a little diagram, I hold it, creates a box. Hold it, creates a box. Circle, creates a circle. Triangle, creates a triangle. And then straight lines. So I like how they added this feature, especially because this feature has been, done on different note applications before. And I really like Apple Notes, and I needed this to come because I was missing this feature a lot. The last thing that I really want them to do is to be able to maybe zoom, pinch out, and then be able to use a bigger diagram. So let's say if I'm diagramming, like you see how big this is, I'm out of room now, but if I want to keep everything on a level playing field, I can just zoom out, make this smaller, and then be able to annotate around it. That's the next feature that I want from Apple Notes. But that's Apple Notes in a nutshell. That's Scribble. So being able to annotate live, copy text or copy handwritten notes as text, being able to scribble into any text field to get what you want. Those are all valid, nice additions. And then 3 more things that I do want to show you guys that's pretty quick. The first one is under Find My. So Find My is now adding permissions for third-party products, applications, softwares to use Find My. So I think this is going to be more integrated for people like they use the tiles, and especially I don't think Apple wants to kill off Tile immediately when they come out with their AirTags. So they're going to allow Tile to integrate with Find My, so anything that has your tiles on it will be able to show up on your Find My, which is really, really nice. And then the next thing again is under privacy. So if you go into privacy, go into tracking, there's a couple things in here, right? So tracking, you can allow apps to request to track. So if this is turned off, which it is right now, it's basically letting apps track my stuff without asking my permission. But if I turn that on, it'll allow apps to ask me for my permission to track my data and my actions or whatever the case may be before they actually do it. And then another one is under location services. So if you go under location services, this is pretty normal. Everybody knows that this is, allows you to toggle between what apps are allowed to use your location services, right? So if I go into Google Maps, obviously you want Google Maps to know your location so it can give you directions, right? But what's new about it is that you can now do precise locations. So for instance, Google Maps, I would want a precise location. I don't want it to know a general vicinity of where I am and then give me directions in a totally different route. Versus something maybe like my American Express account, maybe they just need to know that I'm in New Jersey, right? Maybe they just need to know that I'm in a certain area, I'm in North Jersey. So I can turn off precise location so I can avoid getting, pinpointed when it comes to ad tracking. So that's a really nice little service. And then the very last thing has to be what they did with how calls come in to the iPad and the iPhone. Before, whenever a call happened, and especially this would really hurt me because I used an iPhone to record what I'm doing. If I were to receive a call in the middle of a video recording, the video recording would just shut off, stop recording, and make you decide whether or not you want to accept or decline that call. And then I would have to remember where I left off, start recording again. Now when I get a FaceTime onto the iPad, it just shows up as a nice little blurb on the top that I can just dismiss or accept from there, and it doesn't bother anything that I'm doing, guys. It doesn't make me quit or stop, which I really, really like, and it really makes my life easier. So those are the main things that I wanted to highlight, so let's get back to the normal view, guys. And that's going to do for this video, guys. So hopefully this kind of gave you guys a nice little rundown about iPadOS 14 and everything that it entailed. I know there wasn't a ton of awesome, game-changing features or applications or modes or whatever you guys want to call it that really enhanced the iPad Pro experience. Scribble was great. Some of the stuff that they made in accessibility makes it nice and easy. The privacy features are always welcome. We're just missing that flagship feature of the iPad Pro because the hardware is there and it's powerful enough to run what we want it to run. Just give me that external display, support, Apple, please. Right? And again, iPadOS Beta 1 or iPadOS 14 Beta 1 is still very, very early in the pre-release and the beta stages, so it is pretty glitchy. Like you guys can see that my widget section is a little bit broken. I don't have the little edit button at the bottom. I'm hoping that's just an issue with mine and not an overall issue, because I did see Zolo Tech's video and he has a little edit button at the bottom of his widget, screen or widget column, whatever you guys want to call it. And that's frustrating me because I can't get to any of my other widgets aside from the Apple native ones for iPadOS 14. But that's my little rant for the end of the video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. I know this was a long one, but hopefully you learned something new. And if you did, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to comment on something. Next video will most likely be the iPad Pro giveaway announcement. So definitely hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned for that. And until next time, thanks so much for watching.